Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So what I'm about to say to you is very, very shocking information. I hope you can follow with what I'm about to say here, but it turns out that having a corporate strategy, prioritizing, mocking potential customers, gamers in general, and trying to own the chuds on Twitter is not a good strategy for success. I know that's a crazy thing, but only a year ago, it seems like anything to do with Microsoft and their subsidiaries like Obsidian Studios, they wanted to mock their critics on social media. And you had games journalists backing them up, and you had posts like this on their official Twitter accounts replying to the haters, aka anyone who has even the slightest criticism for the mid slop they've been releasing. Well, it turns out they're finding out. As reported here, both The Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed failed to meet Xbox's sales expectations. I literally cannot believe this, ladies and gentlemen. The two games that everyone said were going to fail and looked like abject failures were actually failures. I know. There were so many people in the games journalism scene trying to not just insult, but also discredit anyone who was saying these two games were a failure for not only Obsidian, but also their owner, which is, of course, Microsoft. Now, we'll talk about these two in just a second, but let's talk about Microsoft generally. Okay, it's been a rough couple of months. You can see 22% decrease in their stock over the past 6 months, and the last month or so has been particularly rough. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this, including the failure of their gaming department, but also Mr. Microsoft himself, Bill Gates, recently popped up in the Epstein files. In fact, there is an email communication sent by Jeffrey Epstein himself saying some pretty crazy things about Bill Gates, including allegations that Bill Gates caught an STD from Russian girls and then begged Epstein for secret antibiotics to sneak into her food or drinks to try to cure her before she found out he transmitted it to her. Yeah, since then, Bill Gates is denying this, and his now ex ex-wife Melinda is basically saying, I hope he gets the justice he deserves. That's a whole nother mess of a situation they're dealing with on a top level. But let's look at Obsidian, which of course is a Microsoft subsidiary who was responsible for producing games like Avowed. Now, this is the Bloomberg reports with Obsidian Entertainment, where they say the studio is now at roughly 280 developers. Grounded 2 was considered a big hit. The Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed failed to meet sales expectations, and there's currently no plans for the Outer Worlds 3. Now, of course, let's begin with Avowed. Okay, this was a game that many people like myself were very skeptical of. It wasn't the worst game ever. This was not Concord or something like that, but it looked very mid on its surface, and a lot of people did not have faith in this game. But of course, the industry was propping it up, even as its numbers on places like SteamDB looked really bad at launch. You had Kotaku, among others, saying the campaign against Avowed reveals the bigotry that fuels the anti-woke in its crusade against Obsidian's action RPG, the anti-DEI mob. has given the game away. Still not sure really what that line means, but yeah, they were trying to basically say bigotry is the reason anyone is upset with this game. It's not the terrible art style, which they seem to embrace to their own downfall. And of course, there was a massive scandal around the time of the game's release where the art director, Matt Hansen, was saying some really crazy stuff on social media. In fact, when Elon Musk criticized the game for having pronouns as an option to choose when you begin playing the game, Matt Hansen posted a screenshot saying sickos.jpg. I wanted so badly to make him mad with my game, and I cannot believe it actually worked. Just wait until you see the default, you sad little piece of crap. Anyway, Avowed comes out on February 18th. And of course, you know, the strategy of prioritizing your decisions around making Elon Musk mad on Twitter is not a very good one. In fact, things got worse when this repost from a fellow person at Obsidian showed Matt saying, reminder to black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice, my DMs are open. And you will always have my priority. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods. Again, as I always say, there is nothing more pathetic than a self-hating white man, someone who hates themselves for a trait they did not choose at birth. But this is also very illegal, according to people like Elon Musk, saying he's confessing to illegal behavior by making these sort of priorities based on race of applicants. Not very good, but looking at Avowed. Okay, right now, a year later after release, 400 in-game players. That is not what they expected whatsoever. And you look down at the chart, I mean, this is a cataclysmic fall off, ladies and gentlemen. You can see the peak at about 19,000 players here, okay? And then just the absolute fall off. And they would try to convince you, whether it's games journalists or people on Twitter, that this is a success as a video game. Nobody with a brain acting objectively would look at this and think anything other than failure. And, well, it was. But people to this day are still defending this. This posted just yesterday. Avowed got far too much fake hate from people who never even played the game simply because it was on Xbox and not PlayStation. Is that the reason this happened? Because it was on Xbox? No. Let's back up. This account right here posted this as, I guess, proof that this game is really good and was snubbed and mistreated by people for unfair reasons. Let's watch. Bro, I mean, are you even trying? Like, if you're trying to do Obsidian a favor here, you're not doing that. Okay, this is not an impressive clip. In fact, it serves against everything you're trying to say, and it really just reflects the lack of care with this game. At launch, an avowed director said that they knew this game was going to be janky. At launch, it was going to be janky. And again, I talked about this recently. People are not paying for a beta, okay? When your game goes live, it should be a polished product. Not perfect, but polished. If you're coming out on launch saying, it's gonna be janky, why would anyone shell out a massive amount of money to play an overpriced piece of slop like this? It's insulting, and nobody should really support anything like this. But of course, there is a second link here, and that is The Outer Worlds 2, which was another game that failed to meet the sales expectations for Microsoft and Obsidian. So, famously, back in November, they made this post on their official official account. Me replying to the haters. Oh, it's just like Assassin's Creed Shadows all over again, right? Owning the chuds and getting likes on Twitter is way more important than making sales. Clearly. Because you can see here, this flopped. 1.4 million views, but only 1.5k likes and nearly 1,000 replies. Okay? There's a reason people are mocking this. Because right now, again, a game with an even more recent release than Avowed, just in late October, they're sitting at 670 in-game players. In fact, if you look at the drop-off, well, you go to the max here, it's very Avowed coded. These sorts of people, they love that sort of language. It's Avowed coded, where it peaked and then massively fell off instantly and basically has never recovered. And then, you have some quotes saying, maybe, just maybe, Fallout New Vegas was a one-off. Obsidian's RPGs are so effing mediocre, man. It sold real bad when they actually admit it. That is a very key takeaway. When these studios come out and actually admit it, even if it's through the Game Awards, by the way, which is interesting, the fact that they admit the sales were this bad, yeah, it was rough. It was really rough over there. But again, especially with Avowed, even more than Outer Worlds 2, if you said that game was a failure back last year, you were told you were a chud, you're a racist, an incel, you're wrong, you're believing conspiracy theories. Well, guess what? It did fail. The writing was on the wall. Anyone looking at this objectively knew this already, but hey, you know what? It's culture war stuff. These people defend mid-slop no matter what, as long as they feel like they're getting an own on the chuds. You know what I mean? But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. As always, make sure to check out my link to my Patreon. I'm going to be uploading an exclusive video over there in the next day or two, so make sure to do that. Thank you guys for the crazy support on that. But also with this video, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.